Hello everyone, in today's session I'm going to solve the workbook questions of the model Millionaire written by Oscar Wilde. This is a video on request, a one-shot video, and here I'm going to discuss 7 extracts. Extract number 1. What is said about wealth in the extract? Give the meaning of the poor should be prosaic. Here I have already marked the important words and expressions. There is no use in being a charming person unless a person is wealthy. Wealth is important. Wealth is important in this story because the story is set in London, England during the Victorian times, and during the Victorian times, wealth was considered to be very important. The rich people can enjoy the privilege of romance. जिनके पास धन दौलत है, वो लोग रोमांटिक रिलेशनशिप्स में इंडल्ज कर सकते थे. क्यों? बिकॉज दे हैव मनी. मगर देयर इज अ डिफरेंस. द अनएम्प्लॉयड पीपल डू नॉट हैव वेल्थ. In Victorian England, wealth is important. The society is divided into 2 sections, the rich and the poor. The rich people can enjoy many benefits, many privileges, but the poor should be prosaic. And this is the next question. The poor people must be aware of the fact that they do not enjoy the benefits that the rich have. There is discrimination based on money, based on wealth. The rich people enjoy benefits and the poor people do not enjoy the benefits. Prosaic का क्या मतलब है? They must be practical. Number 1, they must be practical. Number 2, they must be commonplace. Number 3, matter of fact and straightforward. ये जो words मैंने यहाँ पे use किया हुआ है, these are the meanings of the word prosaic. The poor people must be rational, practical, realizing the significance of a permanent income. अगर इन poor लोगों के पास एक permanent income नहीं है, तो उनका जीवन बहुत hardships वाला, difficulties वाला होने वाला है. And the poor should be aware of this. They must not indulge in any kind of luxury or in any kind of privileges enjoyed by the rich. Now give 2 positive qualities of Huey. What was his drawback? In this question we have 2 points to answer. 2 positive qualities and also 1 drawback, shortcoming. Huey Erskine was a young man with astonishing, wonderfully good looks. So here I have quoted with fresh, clean brown hair, sharp profile and grey eyes. He was also popular with men and women. तो 2 qualities, 2 positive qualities क्या है? एक तो wonderfully good looking और दूसरा वाला है he was popular with men and women. And what was his drawback? He did not have the accomplishment of making money. Very important. This is the drawback. He had no profession, although he had tried everything. So this was his drawback. Use these key words and expressions in your answer, and I am sure that you are going to get good marks. After this, question number 3. Question number 3. What did his father bequeath him? Father ने मरने से पहले ह्यूई को क्या दिया? What did he do with the inheritance? His father had bequeathed him his cavalry sword, number 1, and a history of the Peninsular War in 15 volumes. Number 2, ये answer टेक्स्ट में बहुत अच्छे तरीके से दिया हुआ है. लर्न दैट डिटो. Cavalry sword, number 1. History of the Peninsular War. Now write the title properly. Use capital letters wherever necessary. And you must also mention 15 volumes. बस ये था प्रॉपर्टी जो ह्यूई को मिला अपने पिता से. And what did Huey do with the inheritance? जो मिला उसके साथ Huey ने क्या किया? Huey hung the first. First का मतलब क्या है? Cavalry sword over his looking glass. So number 1, what did he do? Put the second. Second क्या है? The 15 volumes. Second on a shelf between Ruff's Guide and Bailey's Magazine. जहां जहां पे कैपिटल लेटर टेक्स्ट में यूज किया गया है बाय ऑस्कर वाइल्ड, आंसर में भी तुम्हें वहीं पे कैपिटल लेटर्स यूज करना है. सो बी वेरी केयरफुल while learning the answers. How did Huey make a living? What was his experience in the stock exchange and in other concerns? First question का आंसर क्या है? Huey tried his luck at employment. वो बहुत सारी चीजों में इन्वॉल्व हुआ. He did everything to make a living. सब कुछ किया, सब कुछ ट्राई किया. Eventually he became unemployed. मगर लास्ट में क्या हुआ? वो बेकार हो गया. As he could not continue. एक चीज में ज्यादा दिन ह्यूई काम नहीं कर सकता था. ये उसका एक ड्रॉबैक भी था. He lived on an allowance of 200 pounds a year that an old aunt allowed him. तो ह्यूई का कोई परमानेंट इनकम नहीं था. वो बहुत कुछ करना चाहता था और बहुत कुछ में इन्वॉल्व भी हुआ था, मगर लास्ट में सब कुछ छूट गया क्योंकि वो कंटिन्यू नहीं कर पाया. मगर उसका जो जीवन था वो कैसे चलता था? He lived on an allowance. अलाउंस का अमाउंट क्या था? 200 pounds a year. किसने दिया था? Old aunt allowed him that allowance. After this, what was his experience in the stock exchange and in other concerns? Huey tried his luck at employment. वो बहुत सारी चीजों में इन्वॉल्व हुआ. He did everything to make a living. सब कुछ किया, सब कुछ ट्राई किया. Eventually he became unemployed. मगर लास्ट में क्या हुआ? वो बेकार हो गया. As he could not continue. एक चीज में ज्यादा दिन ह्यूई काम नहीं कर सकता था. ये उसका एक ड्रॉबैक भी था. He lived on an allowance of 200 pounds a year that an old aunt allowed him. तो ह्यूई का कोई परमानेंट इनकम नहीं था. वो बहुत कुछ करना चाहता था और बहुत कुछ में इन्वॉल्व भी हुआ था, मगर लास्ट में सब कुछ छूट गया क्योंकि वो कंटिन्यू नहीं कर पाया. मगर उसका जो जीवन था वो कैसे चलता था? He lived on an allowance. अलाउंस का अमाउंट क्या था? 200 pounds a year. किसने दिया था? Old aunt allowed him that allowance. After this, what was his experience in the stock exchange and in other concerns? You will have to describe his experience briefly. He had gone on the stock exchange for 6 months. MONTHS 6 months के लिए ह्यूई ने स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में काम किया था. He was like a butterfly, simple, small, delicate in the world of bulls and bears, speculations, stiff competition, and the rise and fall in stock prices. So here I have quoted from the text. Stock exchange में क्या experience था? He was like a butterfly. He was just a small investor. He was a simple man and he was too fragile in the world of bulls and bears. Bulls and bears का क्या मतलब है? स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में स्पेकुलेशंस होता है, स्टिफ कंपटीशन होता है, एंड देयर इज ऑल्सो द राइज एंड फॉल इन स्टॉक प्राइसेस. द एक्सप्रेशन bulls and bears means this. So here I have given his experience at the stock exchange. After this, he also tried his luck as a tea merchant. He had been a tea merchant for a little longer than 6 months. But soon he lost interest in Pico and Souchong. He could not continue in the trade of selling dry sherry also. So I have explained his experience in the stock exchange and other concerns, for example, tea merchant and trade of selling dry sherry. So you must include everything in your answer. This is the question. तो ये 5 लाइनों में मैं फिट नहीं कर पाऊंगी. After this, 5. Give the meaning of. Ultimately, he became nothing. A delightful young man with a perfect profile and no profession. So, explain this line. Huey turned out to be a charming young man. Delightful young man का मतलब मैंने यहाँ पे क्या लिखा है? Charming young man, amiable. वो popular थे, वो amiable, friendly nature के थे. Wonderfully good looking, perfect profile. But he was simply unable to get a job with no profession, with a permanent income or means of livelihood. So there is humor here. And there is also irony in this portrayal, a critical comment, a brief critical comment. So if you're writing the meanings of a line or a particular expression, try to fit in a brief critical statement. So there is humor also, there is irony also. अब extract number 2 हम discuss करेंगे. Read the extract. Who is he referred to in the extract? Just notice the spelling of referred. Majority of the students write this incorrectly. What troubles he had earlier in his life? Who is he referred to here? Huey Erskine, who is a young, wonderfully good-looking man, is referred to as he. I did not simply write Huey Erskine. I also mentioned I gave a brief description here. A brief description will fetch you good marks. So what troubles he had earlier in his life? Troubles, problems क्या है? Huey के जिंदगी में he was poor, number 1. Poverty stricken condition. He did not have the knack for making money, number 2. He had not inherited any fortune as well. His late father had not given him any fortune, property. ज़्यादा property भी नहीं मिला. A cavalry sword और एक book in 15 volumes. And he tried his luck at employment but could not continue in the business ventures. बहुत ज़्यादा दिन Huey एक particular venture में नहीं टिकता था. He had thus no profession. These were the troubles he had earlier in his life. So all these things are there in the text. Read the text thoroughly. Reading the text thoroughly is compulsory. Give the meaning of who had lost his temper and digestion in India. Now who has lost his temper and digestion? His कौन है? Laura Merton's father had served in the army and had been posted in India, and this made him irritable. Lost his temper का क्या मतलब है? Made him irritable and his digestion became poor and weak. So, with reference to India, what theme is referred to? So, you must learn the themes as well. So, very quickly the answer. The Victorian era was marked by rapid colonization. Laura's father was posted in India, a British colony at that time. So we have the theme of colonization here. After this is not extract number 3, continuation. Extract number 2, question number 3. Name and explain the figure of speech. Figure of speech को हमें नेम करना है, आइडेंटिफाई करना है और एक्सप्लेन भी करना है. यूज्ड इन द फॉलोइंग एंड ही वॉज रेडी टू किस हर शू स्ट्रिंग्स. सो दिस इज द expression. What is the figure of speech here? Huey Erskine was ready to kiss her shoestrings. His beloved Laura Merton adored Huey. Huey was deeply and madly in love with Laura, and Laura also adored him, reciprocated his love for her. The figure of speech used to show the deep love of Huey for Laura is hyperbole. और hyperbole क्या है? Hyperbole involves exaggeration. He was so deeply in love with Laura that he was always ready to kiss her shoestrings. ये एक exaggeration है. So also identify the other figures of speech here and learn them. Question 4. They were the handsomest couple in London, but what was lacking in their lives? How did they obtain it? They were the handsomest couple in London, but they did not have a penny piece between them. It's there in the text. Write this. देखो ये answer कितना छोटा है. So depending on the question, I'll frame my answers. How did they obtain it? Hughie received an envelope from Baron Hosberg which contained a check for £10,000. With this money, they obtained a fortune. So what was lacking in their lives? Money. And how did they obtain it? Because of the check for £10,000. So this is question number 4. And question number 5 kya hai? Just let us discuss very quickly. What was the colonel's attitude towards Hughie? The colonel was very fond of Hughie, but he would not hear of any engagement. What does that say about Hughie? Next paragraph. This shows that Hughie is poor, with no profession, no considerable fortune inherited, and with just an allowance of 200 a year that an old aunt allowed him. So, Hughie could not propose marriage. And here, I'll also add another thing. The colonel was very fond of Hughie because Hughie was good-natured. He was a good person. Good-natured, young man. Just add this. But he had no profession, no considerable fortune inherited with just an allowance. So just add this for colonel's fondness. Which characteristic trait of colonel is reflected in his attitude towards Hughie? पसंद था Hughie, मगर वो agree नहीं कर रहे थे marriage के लिए. Why? The colonel asked Hughie to come to him with the proposal of marriage to his daughter when he had £10,000 of his own. This shows how much importance was given to money, and the colonel wanted his son-in-law to be financially stable, capable of providing for his family. So how much importance was given to money? Just add this, the setting during the Victorian times. During the Victorian times. The social context of this story during the Victorian period or times. Just add this here. How much importance was given to money during the Victorian period or during the Victorian time. It's time for the third extract now. Who is he referred to in the extract? Where did he go and why? Hughie Erskine, a delightful, ineffectual young man with a perfect profile and no profession, is referred to as he. I have briefly described Hughie here. Instead of simply writing Hughie Erskine, I have just added a little. Where did he go? As he was on his way to Holland Park, where the Mertons lived, Hughie dropped in the studio of Alan Trevor. And why? He went there to meet his great friend Alan Trevor, who was a painter. इसीलिए Alan Trevor के studio में वो रुका. Describe Alan Trevor's appearance. Alan Trevor was a strange, rough fellow with a freckled face and a red, ragged beard. A simple description. What is said about Trevor as an artist? Alan Trevor was not only a painter but also an artist, and artists are rather rare. बहुत सारे painters हैं, मगर जो एक true real artist होते हैं, वो लोग बहुत rare है. When he took up the brush, he was a real master, and his pictures were eagerly sought after. He was proficient in the craft of art and was patronized by many. Why was he attracted by Hughie? He was attracted by Hughie at first entirely on account of the latter's, Hughie's, personal charm. You must include this in your answer. According to Trevor, whom should an artist know? According to Trevor, an artist should know people who are beautiful people, who are an artistic pleasure to look at and an intellectual repose to talk to. This entire section is there in the text. Men who are dandies and women who are darlings rule the world. And according to Trevor, an artist must know these people. After this, question number 5. Why did Trevor give permanent entry to Huey to his studio? Trevor gave permanent entry to Huey to his studio because after he got to know Huey better, he liked him quite as much for his bright, buoyant spirits, for his cheerful nature, and his generous, reckless nature. And then, what does that show about Trevor? Although Trevor and Huey had different temperaments, he liked the charming nature of Huey. He does not hesitate to develop. So here I will just add, he did not. He did not hesitate to develop a bond. This showed Trevor's ability to value genuine friendship, his appreciation for character rather than external qualities. Who was the beggar man? Describe his appearance at the studio. The beggar man was posing as a model for Alan Trevor. Initially, his identity is not clearly stated. Later, he is mentioned as Baron Hosberg, who gave Trevor a commission to paint him as a beggar. And describe his appearance at the studio. He was an wizened old man with a face like wrinkled parchment and most piteous expression. All these details are there in the text. Over his shoulder was flung a coarse, brown, tattered clothes, and then tattered piece of cloth. I'll just add this, tattered piece of cloth. His thick boots were patched and cobbled. He leant on a rough stick with one hand, and with the other he held out his battered hat for arms. So, his appearance at the studio. What was a model paid for a sitting? A model was paid a shilling an hour for a sitting. How much does an artist get for a picture? Trevor and the artist and the other artists get paid more than a model. For the portrait of the beggar man, Alan would get £2,000. According to Huey, what must be paid to a model? According to Huey, a model should have a percentage for their hard work of the earnings of the artist's earnings for a painting. जितना एक आर्टिस्ट को मिलता है उसका एक परसेंटेज मॉडल को भी जाना चाहिए for their hard work. How is that a comment on Victorian society at that time? This comment exposes the socio-economic inequality prevalent in the Victorian society at that time. It highlights the exploitation of the poor models by the rich and successful painters. जो profit होता था सब कुछ successful painters ले जाते थे और poor models को बहुत कम पैसा दिया जाता था. So there was discrimination. The rich discriminated against the poor, opposed equal distribution of wealth among all sections of the society. There was income inequality. What does Trevor say to imply that artists' work is hard? Trevor says that artists have to take the trouble of laying on the paint alone, and also standing all day long at one's easel is exhausting. He expresses his disappointment when he says that there are moments when art almost attains to the dignity of manual labor. An artist has to cater to the needs of their patrons. जो patrons कहेंगे आर्टिस्ट को वही फॉलो करना पड़ेगा, और ये कुछ समय क्या होता है बहुत एग्जॉस्टिंग भी हो जाता है. तो कौन ज़्यादा काम करता है एक पेंटिंग बनाने में, आर्टिस्ट या मॉडल? हाँ, मॉडल को आर्टिस्ट पेंट करते हैं. जो रियल काम है वो आर्टिस्ट्स करते हैं, मॉडल्स नहीं करते हैं. So artists' work is hard in comparison with the work of the models. It's time for extract number 5. Why did Huey pity the beggar man? The beggar man looked so forlorn and wretched that Huey Erskine was moved to pity. Quote this from the text. What did he do to help him? Huey walked across the studio and slipped a sovereign into the beggar's hand. Which theme prevalent in the Victorian period is shown in the action of Huey? Huey's generosity, compassion are evident in his helping the beggar man. This reflects the Victorian period's emphasis on philanthropy and concern for the less fortunate. The principles of socialism. Victorian times में there was belief in socialism and the tenets of socialism evident during the age. What was the reaction of the beggar man while receiving alms from Huey? The beggar man started and a faint smile flitted across his withered lips. He also thanked Huey for his wealth. So he started and then he had a faint smile and also he said thank you. State the impact of Huey's charity. The beggar man was grateful. Impact to Huey for his charity. Huey's goodness brought a faint smile despite being forlorn, wretched and filled with misery. Miserable. I'll make this miserable. M-I-S-E-R-A-B-L-E. Later, what do we see? The impact. Later we come to know that Baron Hosburg was in the high spirits after Huey left, kept chuckling to himself and rubbing his old wrinkled hands together. He was so pleased that he became interested to know all about Huey and would also invest Huey's sovereign for him. What was the reaction of Laura? Huey got a charming scolding from Laura for his extravagance, and Trevor, on Huey's charity, Trevor shouted, gave him a sovereign, and he burst into a roar of laughter. He informed Huey jokingly that he would never see the sovereign again. What conquest did Huey make? Huey Erskine made a conquest according to Alan Trevor. The beggar man whom Huey had helped by slipping a sovereign into his hands turned out to be Baron Hosburg. Baron Hosburg कौन थे? One of the richest men in Europe. He became devoted to Huey and wanted to know everything about him. So this was quite significant. This was indeed a conquest. After this, how was the conquest made? The conquest was made by Huey quite unknowingly. उसे पता ही नहीं था जिसे वो हेल्प कर रहा था वो एक्चुअली एक बेगर नहीं है, वो एक मिलियनेयर है. The forlorn and wretched look on the beggar's face forced Huey to dig into his pocket and part with the largest coin he had. Forlorn and wretched expression, look, so was instrumental in making the conquest. His generosity, compassion, despite his own problems, touched Baron Hosburg. Throughout his encounter with the beggar man at Alan's studio, Huey was unaware of the true identity of the millionaire. Thus, an unexpected encounter between the two led to the conquest. So, these are the factors that led to the conquest. एक तो wretched look on the beggar's face moved Huey very much. Huey's generosity, compassion touched the baron. And Huey was unaware of the true identity. He made the conquest unwillingly और एक unexpected encounter में बहुत कुछ हो गया, important हो गया in the life of Huey. What was immediate fear of Huey when he would go home? The immediate fear of Huey when he would go home was that Baron Hosburg, the old beggar man whom he had unknowingly given a sovereign, would be waiting for him. He was feeling embarrassed and thought himself to be a fool. Give the meaning of. Important. What do you call rags? I call romance. What seems poverty to you is picturesqueness to me. So the two viewpoints of the two friends. Alan Trevor एक artist थे. He was an artist with an aesthetic bent of mind. His subjective perception of the tattered clothes of the beggar man was based on his aestheticism. He wanted to portray the beauty of a miserable old beggar with the eye of an artist in a lifelike manner. Very important. As an artist, he must give expression to the beauty involved in misery, and that too in a lifelike manner. This is a hallmark of an artist. Huey's perception is thus different from that of Trevor's. So you must point the difference in this way. Huey sympathizes with the poverty-stricken man while Trevor romanticizes poverty and its visual representation through the medium of his art. He uses his art to show a thing as it is. This is the basic difference. An artist's head is in his head. Huey tells the quoted words to Alan. Speaker, listener, the former is emotional. Huey is emotional and does not know much about art, while the latter prioritizes aestheticism in the conceptualization of his subject. He gives priority to aestheticism in the conceptualization of his subject, the subject of his art. The true depth and essence of an artist's feelings and inspiration come from their mental and intellectual faculties. Thus, Huey highlights this. He is so embarrassed that he expresses his annoyance at Trevor's attitude. He is annoyed and he expresses his annoyance at Trevor's attitude. Practical attitude. What was told to the beggar man about Huey? What was Huey's reaction on knowing that Trevor told the beggar about Huey and Laura? Alan Trevor told Baron Hosberg, who was disguised as the beggar man, everything about Huey. क्या क्या बताया था? Who he was, where he lived, what his income was, what prospects he had, his affair with Laura, and about the condition of £10,000 imposed by the colonel on him. Alan revealed all the private affairs of Huey. Isse Huey ko kya hua? Huey looked very red and angry. His reaction, he felt irritated, annoyed with Trevor. He was feeling hopeless and foolish as well. So he was embarrassed. He was ashamed of his foolishness. Extract 7. Who was the old gentleman who brought the letter? The old gentleman who brought the letter was Monsieur Gustave Nodin, who was acting on behalf of Baron Hosberg. What were the contents in the sealed envelope? The sealed envelope contained a wedding present for Huey Erskine and Laura Merton. On the outside of the letter was written. What was written on it? A wedding present to Hugh Erskine and Laura Merton from an old beggar, and inside was a check for £10,000. So this was their wedding gift. How did the Baron know that Huey was in need of money? Alan Trevor told the Baron about Huey's liking for the lovely Laura and the condition imposed by the relentless colonel on Huey. Huey did not have a profession, but would have to come to the colonel with £10,000 of his own for any engagement with his beloved. Thus the Baron came to know that Huey was in need of money. £10,000 Huey को चाहिए था अगर वो लॉरा के साथ शादी रचाना चाहता था. And the Baron came to know about this need of money. The Baron gifted him a big sum of £10,000. This was the sum that he would need to fulfill his need. What role did Trevor play in finalizing Huey's marriage to Laura? Trevor played a crucial role in finalizing Huey's marriage. Had he not revealed the private affairs of Huey and the colonel's condition, the union of the lovers would not have been finalized. It would not have been possible. Baron Hosberg rewarded Huey so that he could utilize the money properly. The colonel agreed when the condition of the money was fulfilled. Wedding में Trevor was the best man, but before the wedding, he played a very crucial role in finalizing it, in finalizing the marriage. The story shows that the poor are generous in helping others. How did Huey's charity to the beggar give him rich benefits? Ironically, this is ironical. Huey के पास कुछ नहीं था, फिर भी वो help कर रहा था एक beggar को. And this shows Huey's charity to the beggar. And this gave him rich benefits. Huey confessed to giving the beggar man a sovereign, the only one he had. The beggar was actually Baron Hosberg, and he was so pleased by Huey's generosity and compassion that he sent Huey a check of £10,000 as a wedding gift. And Huey was able to finally marry Laura. Explain the meaning of millionaire. Models are rare enough, but model millionaires are rare still. The ending of this story. Alan Trevor speaks the quoted words for Baron Hosberg. Baron Hosberg proves himself to be a model. What is the meaning of model here? An example of what every millionaire ought to be like. उनके जैसे दरियादिल होना चाहिए सबको, सब millionaires को, सब rich people को. The rich can voluntarily redistribute their wealth, मगर ऐसा नहीं होता है. जो rich है generally वो they believe in inequality in income distribution. They play a major role in the unequal distribution of income in the society. But Baron Hosberg is an example. He has set an example. He proves that a millionaire should be philanthropic. He must help others and helpful to the needy. So he is rare. This Baron Hosberg, a millionaire who poses to be a beggar as a model, has proved to be an epitome of kindness and virtue. Millionaire models, इसका क्या मतलब है? Disguised as beggar man, he posed as Alan Trevor's model. ऐसा बहुत लोग नहीं करते. Millionaires ऐसा नहीं करते. This is rare. But being a model millionaire is rare still. He blends sarcasm and irony in glorifying Hosberg as a rare specimen or embodiment of charity among the rich people. However, he is also a patron of art and posed for himself. Such millionaires are rarely found.